welcome. My name is Simon and we are the Whales of Wall Street. Today we're going to be looking at a token called XDC, which is part of XinFin, and I'm going to explain why it's my number one priority in terms of my bags that I have and invest in. So without further ado, let's go straight into this and we'll jump onto the browser. So XinFin, which actually stands for Exchange Infinite, is basically an enterprise kind of ready hybrid blockchain suited for international trade and finance. So in a nutshell, taking or trying to take control of border payments and things like this, as well as other elements which we'll go into in a second. And XDC, which is actually a token, so that's the tokenization which basically powers the XFin blockchain. And the way it does that, it uses the XDC protocol to support smart contracts, KYC, which is basically know your customer, which we'll go into in a second, and also master nodes as well. So KYC is basically by knowing your customer, essentially removing crime and potential money laundering. So it really helps with the kind of like privacy of transactions, identity protection and things like that. So hopefully that clears that up a bit. So using the XFin blockchain in what they call a proof of stake scenario basically provides this permission-based platform and commercial grade status. So I'm just going to pinpoint here as well the power of XDC versus a couple of other tokens here. And I do think this is a bit like Ripple. But we will go on to that in a second. But just a few quick points here. How big Ethereum are, of course. Look at the massive difference in terms of transactions per second, the costs, average fees in terms of every transaction, and the energy consumptions as well. So like I said in one of my previous videos, I will do a video on the impact of finance in general in terms of emissions and energy consumption. It's actually quite fascinating. It's not something I knew that would even affect things like the environment and emissions and things like this. So it's quite phenomenal, really. And transaction confirmation is basically when a transaction is confirmed as done and completed. 2 seconds. Absolutely incredible. So we will go on to that in a bit more detail and a bit of comparison to some other tokens in a second as well. But just jumping back to why I'm sort of talking about XDC and why I think it's arguably one of the top ones to look for if you're looking for something along the lines of Ripple and XLM. XDC is definitely up there, and there's a lot of reasons why I put it at the top of the pile in my opinion. Obviously none of this is financial advice, it's just trying to engage in interest in something that I've done quite a bit of research on and something that I obviously invest in, and I do believe that it's one of my top priorities for sure in the coming months. So the way the integration of XDC and XFin in terms of digital cryptos, why it's interesting to me, they're basically using it as a top level solution to back central bank digital currencies, which again we've done a video on recently, by running on what's called the Corda network. Now the Corda network is created by a company called R3. Okay, so R3 is actually backed by massive amount of major banking institutions and other finance organizations across the world. Do a bit more research on R3. I might do a video separately on R3 in general, but the founders and everything about R3 is essentially created by bankers, CEO levels and founders of banks and high top level personnel have moved from the traditional banking systems to this kind of technology and system, which I find really interesting. So if I was going to pick something that was going to potentially power like CBDCs across the world or even a lot of crypto elements in general, I'd probably be looking at one where there's a lot of history and background in relation to the people that work for them in these sectors. So XDC and R3 and Corda, which we'll go on to in a second, tick all those boxes for me, and that's why I find this one very, very interesting indeed. So yeah, the Corda network is basically what R3 have created, and essentially it's kind of combining all of these things together to essentially help with things like data visibility, security, and auditability. So from that perspective, it's actually a really important thing for when financial institutions are looking for something secure and something essentially bulletproof. This again ticks that kind of box. So data visibility, for example, is important when applied to enterprise. Privacy of sensitive financial data is obviously of utmost importance to some financial institutions, of course, and the auditability. Sorry, with it being slightly open, it kind of has that balance. So where you're looking at like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which can be compromised, yes, the kind of situation with XDC and Corda, etc., can be compromised in the sense that you can see some elements of it if you're auditing, but to the general public you can't see transactions. Whereas a lot of the other chains, there's various sites that you can see transactions in and out of various cryptocurrencies and blockchains. So it's giving that balance of security, but also only allowing certain permissions to certain people, organizations, as and when required, which is quite a substantial commercial grade requirement for those guys. So yeah, really, really interesting. And taking as well the existing banking systems and the regulations, but at the same time preserving the decentralized solution and what that's all about. So just take a look at Corda, take a look at R3 when you get a moment. It's absolutely fascinating. It's truly next generation, and arguably, in my opinion, this is ready for anything in terms of CBDCs, crypto, and digital currencies and things like this. And I'll touch on that towards the end. But yeah, as I mentioned, there's obviously a couple of other tokens that are quite similar. So XRP is another one of my bags. Absolutely love Ripple, absolutely love XRP. Going for a bit of a tough time with the SEC, but we know they're going to be a powerhouse, 100%. And in the grand scheme of things, they're well ahead in terms of the transaction power and similar to XFin, but actually there's a 4-second transaction settlement time here, and we've seen here XDC has 2 seconds, so already ahead of that game. XRP Ripple's quite old now. XDC through XinFin is not too old, so it's quite amazing how in such a short space of time how technology and advancements in crypto have taken effect as we've gone on. And another one, as I've mentioned here, absolutely phenomenal in comparison even to the likes of powerhouses like Ripple. So do take a look into this more interesting information here. R3 for me is all about partnerships and things like this, and their spectrum across the globe is growing and growing. And I do have an interest in the sense that they're partnering and very much aligned with the likes of Swift already, and companies like Microsoft. We've done a couple of videos recently about Microsoft's game in crypto at the moment, and obviously everyone knows Microsoft, their software capabilities and things like this. And that will relate to something I mentioned in a second about ISOs. But yeah, it's great to see these partnerships. It's great to see that they're already involved in very much the high-end banking institutions across the world already, including process powers such as Swift. It kind of ticks all those boxes for me, as I've said. But R3 in general, I will do a proper video on them very soon. But they're very similar to some videos that I've spoken about recently in regards to real estate platforms, supply chain platforms. So they're covering a massive spectrum. Can you imagine something like XTC and the Corda network powering all of this. Like, it's already in place. They're already thinking about it. They're already doing it. It's just so positive, in my opinion. So yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And again, the only enterprise blockchain on the market designed for highly regulated environments, offering scalability, security, and integration with existing systems. So as I mentioned earlier about the talking about existing banking systems and regulations and stuff, but they have the balance of keeping their decentralized motives as well. So that's really important to me, is that you've got something that's got such substantial structure, but is also willing and wanting to push ahead in this new digital transformation in terms of finance and everything like that. So it's absolutely fantastic. And as well as that, as amazing as XRP is, XDC is already regulated across the board, really. EBR, EU benchmark regulations, so they've already got standardization with those guys. I think it's the IOCO, the Organization of Security Commission, so they're already with those guys. And one of the major ones, ISO 20022, which is just on the page here. Again, very heavily related with Swift. This is helpful with developer friendly kind of thing as well. But ISO, I don't even know how to say it. Probably 222. That's what I'll roll with. I'll do a video on that as well in the coming weeks. But that's phenomenal. Standardization to have already, and that's just basically simplifying and essentially one singular innovative standardization across the monetary platform as we move ahead, whether that be your traditional banking or digital currencies. The fact that these guys have gone ahead and got all these regulations, got all these standardizations already ahead of anyone else. Yes, I can't be more positive about this, to be honest. So like I said, it's absolutely fascinating. Do your own research, of course, but I think that this is one that's gone onto the radar, and I don't know why. And maybe that's a good thing, because for me, I like the low prices still to keep obtaining more and more. But you can, at the moment, you can get it on Bitrue, and recently just been added to Qcoin as well. So there was a bit of a pump and dump session a couple of weeks back as the platform launched it, but you can expect that on new exchange launches and things like that. But it's at a very steady price point, a very low price point at the moment. Something I find very enticing, and I'm sure in the future it's going to be an absolute gem to hold right now, as we transition and move more into the CBDC space. The banks are moving in that way as well, and XTC is one of the forefronts of this. And I'm sure you'll see more and more videos about XTC across multiple YouTubers and things. Like I said, I'm quite surprised not many are picking up on it. There's a selective handful of what I would call true ambassadors of XTC, and I like to think I'm one of those, in the sense that truly believe in it, truly believe in the mechanism behind it, and I just love the hybrid section of it, with traditional and decentralized together. So guys, that just leaves me to really see what you guys think about it. So please do like and subscribe the video. Please leave some comments below. What do you think of XTC? Are you invested? What do you like or dislike about it? What do you think about it versus sort of Ripple and XLM and other chains like that in this kind of space? Really interested to know what you think. But yeah, other than that, I hope you've found it interesting and informative. And I will do a few more videos, like I said, on this, on R3 and Corda, as well as some of the standardizations as well. But yeah, other than that, like I said, hope you found it interesting, and we'll see you on the moon. Thanks, guys.